The most terrifying jobs in history. You think your job is a nightmare. You complain about your boss, the pointless paperwork, the soul-crushing commute. But what if your daily task list involved wading into leech-infested swamps, digging up freshly buried corpses in the dead of night, or handling the bodily fluids of the most powerful man in the kingdom? You're about to discover the jobs so dangerous, so disgusting, so utterly bizarre, that they make your worst day at the office look like a vacation. These aren't just bad jobs, they were often a death sentence. Forget what you learned in history class. This is the real, unfiltered, and horrifying truth about earning a living in the past. Imagine this, it's midnight. The only sounds are the wind and the frantic thumping of your own heart. You're in a graveyard, shovel in hand, working as fast as you can. Why? Because you're a resurrectionist, and your job is to steal the dead. In the 18th and 19th centuries, medical schools were desperate for cadavers to teach anatomy, but the law only allowed them to use the bodies of executed criminals. It wasn't nearly enough. So a dark new trade was born. You and your crew would watch the obituaries, target the freshest graves, and under the cover of darkness, you'd perform a grim task. This wasn't about a clean exhumation. You'd dig a hole at the head of the coffin, break it open with a sickening crack, and then use a rope to haul the corpse out of its final resting place. You had to be fast, before the body started to decompose, and before the victim's family, who sometimes stood guard with guns, found you. You didn't just risk getting arrested, you risked getting shot. And here's the truly twisted part. You were a vital part of medical advancement. The doctors who bought your illegal merchandise went on to save lives, all thanks to your horrifying, grave-robbing hustle. It was a job that turned you into a monster in the eyes of society, all in the name of progress. If grave robbing sounds too sneaky for you, how about a job where the goal is to get attacked by blood-sucking parasites? Welcome to the life of a leech collector. For centuries, leeches were a medical cure-all, used for everything from headaches to fevers. But where did doctors get them? From people like you. Your job was to wade into stagnant, filthy ponds and marshes, the perfect breeding ground for leeches. But you didn't use a net. No, the most efficient collection method was your own body. You'd walk through the murky water, letting dozens of the writhing creatures latch onto your bare legs. Once your legs were covered, you'd stumble back to shore, pluck the now engorged leeches off your bleeding skin, and put them in a jar. It was excruciatingly painful and horrifically dangerous. The open wounds from the leech bites almost always got infected from the filthy water, leading to disease, gangrene, and a slow, agonizing death. Most leech collectors had short, miserable careers, literally bleeding to death for a handful of pennies. Think about the whitest, purest robes worn by a Roman senator. How do you think they got that clean in an era before chemical detergents? The answer is so disgusting it will turn your stomach. They were cleaned by a fuller, and their secret ingredient was human urine. That's right. Your job was to work in an ancient laundromat, where giant vats were filled with stale pee collected from public urinals. You would throw the dirty togas into this vile mixture and then spend your entire day stomping on them with your bare feet, the ammonia fumes burning your eyes and lungs. This process, called fulling, broke down the grease and dirt, but it meant you were literally wading in human waste for a living. The smell was so overpowering that fuller workshops were legally required to be on the outskirts of the city. You were a walking biohazard, a person whose entire existence reeked of urine. You produced beautiful white cloth, but you lived and breathed filth to do it. Of all the horrifying jobs in history, this one might be the most bizarre. The Groom of the Stool. The title sounds important, and it was. You were one of the most powerful and wealthy men in Tudor England. But what did you do to earn that power? You wiped the king's backside. This wasn't just about hygiene. You were with the king during his most private and vulnerable moments. You were responsible for monitoring his bowel movements, which were seen as a critical indicator of his health. You would literally inspect the royal feces and report your findings to the royal doctors. You held the king's secrets in your hands, literally. Because of this insane intimacy, you became the king's most trusted confidant. While dukes and earls begged for a moment of the king's time, you had his undivided attention multiple times a day. You controlled who got to see him, passed on secret messages, and wielded immense political influence. You became rich and powerful, all because your job was to manage the royal toilet. It was a position of ultimate power, born from the most disgusting task imaginable. So, the next time you have to sit through a boring meeting, just be grateful. At least you don't have to report on the consistency of your boss's lunch. If these disturbing historical realities made you question everything you thought you knew, maybe hit that subscribe button. Because the past is filled with horrifying truths that the textbooks conveniently leave out. And trust me, you haven't heard anything yet.